Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Friends, I'm a real simple man. I see a based, viral Joe Rogan clip, I click it, I enjoy it, I'm a real Joe Rogan enjoyer, and I have a great day. And well folks, today is a great day. Let's talk about influence, let's talk about cultural influence. We always say how the left controls the media, they control social media, they control the culture and celebrities. And now that's absolutely true, but over time it's becoming less and less true. As Ben Shapiro's The Daily Wire starts to become a massive competitor in the media sphere, leftists for the first time are having a little bit of competition. Probably their biggest competition and public enemy number one is Joe Rogan. This is why they're constantly trying to dig up dirt on him and cancel him with their despicable slander campaigns. Because Joe Rogan is the size of Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, NBC News, CBS combined and then some. At the peak of Joe Rogan's popularity, he was averaging 11 million viewers an episode. CNN could be on and running 24/7 in every single nursing home, every single airport across the entire globe, and they wouldn't even scratch 10 million. Joe Rogan is a cultural force, a cultural phenomenon, and he, just like everybody else, seems to be trending rightward in his politics. Joe Rogan's going from I'm supporting Bernie Sanders for president, openly supporting a straight up communist, a socialist, because my feelings or something, to openly criticizing the Democrat Party on a pretty consistent basis, and this time going as far to say, vote Republican in the next elections. Leftists are seething, folks. They're losing their grasp on cultural power, and Joe Rogan is the biggest example of that. Let me show you guys what he had to say, and then let's just talk about this rightward cultural trend in general, because like we know, the pendulum swings very, very slowly, and I think we're just at the beginning of it as the conservative counterculture continues to become more powerful. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so recently we've heard from Joe Rogan that if Ron DeSantis was on the ticket, he wouldn't even think twice, he would vote for him. That was a big step. That was a big statement. That of course had leftists losing their mind. The fact that he said that to over 10 million people and then that started bouncing all over the internet, and the reach of that one little clip or that one statement alone probably reached tens of millions of people. Well, now Joe Rogan is going as far to say that the only remedy to the most recent leftist authoritarian trend that we've seen is to vote Republican. Take a look at this.
Joe, they closed the beaches in California.
Yeah.
They closed the beaches
Yeah.
where I live in California.
Yeah.
And all along the coast.
Oh, yeah. Remember that one guy who was getting arrested by the Coast Guard because he was parasailing or something? No, he was surfing.
Surfing, yeah.
Yeah, he was surfing. The Coast Guard.
You're out there by yourself.
Yeah.
On a surfboard.
They're supposed to be stopping terrorists. But, you know, I hope there's lessons learned in this because this is a new thing. We had never had this before. No one who is alive today had ever experienced a true pandemic. And I'm hoping that now that this is over, people are going to, recognize that some serious errors were made and not repeat those. That's the best you can get out of it. But as far as compensation for all those people that were forced to close their businesses and keep their doors shuttered and lost everything that they'd worked for decades to build, no, they're just going to be angry.
So what do you tell those people?
Vote Republican.
Joe Rogan is not just saying, I would vote for Ron DeSantis. Joe Rogan is saying that you should vote Republican right now because the Democrats have completely lost their minds. And that's right before a midterm election. Joe Rogan is saying, vote for Republicans in general. That's huge, folks, and it's more evidence that the normies are getting it. Regular people who baseline have identified as leftists or moderates, all of a sudden are having massive wake-up calls over the last 2 years, and it's a clear, undeniable political trend. This is one of the main reasons why I'm not buying the leftist copium about the 2022 midterms. Because how can Republicans lose if the trend is clearly rightward? How can Republicans lose if nearly 2 million people have left the Democrat Party and are now registered as Republicans in their respective states? If Joe Rogan's saying it, then millions of other people are saying it. And of course now this is just a feeling mixed with a little bit of data. I know there's a lot of data that suggests that Democrats are in a great position ahead of the midterms. I mean, not like they're going to get a massive blue wave, but a lot of people are saying that it's going to be closer than you might expect and that Democrats are going to overperform. But I'm just not buying it because of this. It's not just the data. General sentiment is an important part as well. This may be a little bit anecdotal, but you go on the streets and you keep hearing the same thing over and over again. In all of these street interviews, stuff like this.
Who did you vote for in 2020?
Joe Biden.
Biden? Why?
I thought it was better than Trump, but Now I think gas is too high, inflation's high. I wish I would have voted for Trump. Trump 2024.
And we've seen this with young voters, we've seen it with old voters, we've seen it with white voters, black voters, Latino voters, and the opposite phenomenon almost doesn't exist. There's way too much voter regret. There's too much negative sentiment related to Democrats. In fact, here's some data to back up my feelings. NBC poll, the Democratic Party image has reached its highest negative rating in 32 years among white and Hispanic voters. Here's the data breakdown. If you guys want to take a look, you can pause the video. But the cultural sentiment is shifting. You know, people get caught up in the day-to-day news cycle. And yeah, you know, it has an impact, especially a short-term impact. But frankly, the societal trauma from 2020 to 2022, what people had to endure, especially in Democrat areas, the loss of their livelihoods, the loss of their business, the loss of their freedoms, is something that has to be at the back of so many people's minds. When you think about enthusiasm, when you think about people that are going to show up to vote, those are the people that I think about. You know, there's the regular partisans that show up on both sides, but I really think one of the most important deciding factors here is going to be the people who show up to vote motivated because they're pissed off. People who might not have voted Republican before, but now their sentiment has shifted entirely, or people who really weren't that political at all and might have not voted in a midterm at all. They might have not even been paying attention and not even known that the midterm was going on. Well, this year they're voting. And I think the political lingering effects from 2020 still exist, even though Republicans are struggling to capitalize on it in terms of their campaign messaging. Regular people are starting to wake up. Maybe it's possible that my information here is anecdotal, because a lot of it frankly comes from street interviews or just me meeting people and hearing a constant sentiment over and over again, or having friends that I've known to be self-identified liberals all of a sudden having a drastic change in their viewpoint over the last 2 years. It's something that is definitely happening, and I think that Joe Rogan is a small example. I mean, he's huge obviously, but it's still a small example of the wider phenomenon. I think this moment from Joe Rogan is in a certain way foreshadowing for what's to come, a certain sentiment, a certain phenomenon that might not be showing up in the polls. Fact of the matter is, Joe Rogan is based, and I absolutely love it. And speaking of Joe Rogan and based moments, he also had this to say criticizing the Biden administration and their former lead propagandist Jen Psaki.
She was a propagandist. I mean, when she's working for the White House, she's this person that, you know, answers questions, and most of it, the hard questions, were all by Peter Doocy on Fox News. He was like the only guy that was like pushing back against her, and she just flat out lied on not just one occasion, multiple occasions. I mean, maybe they had a narrative that they told her, maybe these are talking points, maybe that's her job. But it's a weird job in the beginning, right, to begin with, because it's a job where you're not even asking the president. You're asking this White House press secretary.
Yeah.
So there's a person, you know, and the only one that was good at that girl, McEnany, what's her name? Kayleigh McEnany, the one who worked for Trump. That lady was a assassin. That lady had like binders with like footnotes, and anyone would say some shit. That's interesting because actually CNN said this, and she would like quote it back to them and stuff it in their face. That lady's the best ever at that job. She's fucking Michael Jordan of White House press secretaries. She's a wizard.
And so Joe Rogan's saying a whole bunch of base things, a whole bunch of things that I totally agree with. And I think this wake-up call, or this political transition that we're seeing with Joe, is indicative of a much larger trend. But of course, we'll just have to see how things play out over the next 2 years. That, however, is what I got for you guys for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you're up for it. I'm gonna get back to work though. I wanna thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.